Beginnings and endings intertwine in life's cruel dance. Some say when one door closes, another opens. But we all face a final door eventually. I stand before mine now, minutes ticking away like grains in an hourglass. Before my time runs out, I need to share how I arrived at this point. My downward spiral began with the passing of Dr. Harlow. Dr. Harlow was the quiet, gentle professor who lived in the blue house at the end of Oak Ridge Lane. He always offered a warm nod and soft greeting to those who passed him on his morning walks. Despite his friendly demeanor, he rarely participated in community gatherings. My parents once explained that he and his wife had been vibrant members of the community until tragedy struck. His wife developed complications during childbirth, and neither she nor their baby survived. Perhaps grief finally caught up with him after all these years. News of his death rippled through our small town, though accounts varied. Some neighbors whispered about heart failure, others suggested natural causes in his sleep. Regardless, the kind professor we all knew had departed this world. With no immediate family nearby, the local authorities organized an estate sale. It was there I found the item that would forever alter my fate. My 17th birthday approached, and I'd been hoping for a computer. While I never specified what kind, a decade-old desktop from a deceased man's estate sale certainly wasn't what I had imagined. Still, I was grateful for the gift. As expected, the computer had been wiped clean, but as someone with modest technical skills, I knew erased files could sometimes be recovered. I should have respected the dead man's privacy, but curiosity overwhelmed my better judgment, and I set about restoring the system. The results were initially disappointing. Dr. Harlow apparently used his computer primarily for grading papers and managing household bills. I was ready to abandon my search when I discovered an unusual application called Mirror. Clicking the icon activated a webcam feed showing a sparse, dimly lit room with a small cot against one wall. The space appeared neglected, with peeling wallpaper and water stains on the ceiling. My first thought was that this might be some kind of security system for a rental property, or perhaps something more unsavory. I wondered if the loneliness following his wife's death had led Dr. Harlow to questionable online activities. I closed the program, intending to forget about it, but my mind kept returning to that mysterious feed. I found myself opening it repeatedly, hoping to catch a glimpse of activity that might explain its purpose. It became an obsession, to the point where I left it running while I slept. One night, I jolted awake, convinced I'd seen movement in the shadowy corner of the room. But when I looked closely, nothing was there. The following morning, everything changed. As I passed my computer, I froze. There was someone in the room. A young woman lay curled on the cot, her body frighteningly thin, clothes hanging loosely from her frame. Her eyes held a vacant stare, as though she'd given up all hope. She couldn't have been much older than me. My mind raced with terrible possibilities. Was this some dark web streaming site? Was she a missing person held against her will? Then a disturbing thought emerged. What if Dr. Harlow himself was responsible? He had always been secretive, had wanted children desperately. Could he have kept someone hidden away? A wave of horror washed over me as I realized that with Dr. Harlow gone, this woman had no one to provide for her. Given her emaciated state, she likely had little time left. Panic seized me. Where could she be? His house had been emptied, but she had to be somewhere nearby. I scoured his recovered emails until I found something promising. Property records for a small plot of land just beyond the woods behind his house. That had to be it. I rushed out without thinking logically. I should have called the police, but the impulse to be a hero clouded my judgment. A decision that has led me to where I am now, facing the end. I sprinted through the woods toward the coordinates from the email. The woman's hopeless expression drove me forward, praying I wasn't too late. I reached a small clearing that matched the location, but found no structure, not even a shed. My heart sank. Had I made a mistake? Then I nearly tripped over something protruding from the ground. A metal handle partially concealed by fallen leaves. My pulse quickened as I brushed away the debris to reveal a small hatch built into the earth. Without hesitation, I pulled it open. Immediately, a foul odor assaulted my senses. the unmistakable smell of decay that triggers primal fear in all humans. Despite the stench, I called down into the darkness. "Hello? Is anyone there? Follow my voice." Only silence answered. With great reluctance, I began descending the metal ladder into the unknown. Strangely, the air grew warmer and more humid as I climbed down. Something about the atmosphere seemed oddly familiar, though I couldn't place why. At the bottom, the dim lighting did little to dispel the terrible smell that permeated the space. I called out again but received no response. Moving cautiously through narrow corridors, I felt an unsettling sensation of being watched. The walls were metal, but the floor was covered with an unusual substrate that didn't resemble natural soil. A thin mist hovered just above this material, triggering that same sense of familiarity I couldn't quite identify. Turning a corner, I stopped abruptly at the sight of an infant's cradle in the center of a small room. Rage and disgust filled me. Had he kidnapped this woman as a baby? Had Dr. Harlow's desire for a child driven him to such monstrous actions? As I approached the cradle, disturbing details emerged. The sides were damaged from within, as if something had clawed its way out. Strange dried stains of a dark bluish color coated the surface, along with coarse black fibers. Whatever had been in that cradle, it wasn't there anymore, and I suddenly wasn't sure I wanted to find it. Every instinct screamed at me to return to the hatch, but I had to locate the woman. The underground structure was larger than expected, with multiple branching tunnels. I began noticing unusual silvery blue strands in the corners, like thick threads or cables. Entering another room, I heard something crunch beneath my feet. Looking down, I couldn't suppress a scream. Animal remains littered the floor, from small rodents to what appeared to be larger mammals. My mind screamed for escape, but then I spotted it. The sparse bedroom from the webcam feed. Pushing aside my fear, I rushed into the room. Children's toys and books, some appearing decades old, filled the shelves. My suspicions of long-term captivity seemed confirmed. I searched frantically, but the woman was nowhere to be found. As hope faded, something on the bed caught my eye. A magazine with the woman from the webcam on its cover. She appeared healthier but unmistakably the same person. The publication date shocked me, nearly 30 years ago. How could she look the same after all this time? Where was she now? I looked up and got my answer. In the adjacent tunnel lay the woman's body, lifeless, with a large tear along her back. I trembled, wondering who could have done this. Dr. Harlow was dead. Who else knew about this place? Approaching cautiously to examine the wound, I realized something was terribly wrong. The tear hadn't come from outside but from within, not a cut but a rupture. Inside, I could see bluish fluid and more of those coarse black fibers. This wasn't murder. It was something else entirely. A molt? I whispered in horror. Suddenly, everything fell into place. The unnatural humidity, the strange soil, the threads in the corners, and now this discarded human shell. I wasn't in an underground bunker. I was standing in a massive terrarium. I heard rapid, light footsteps approaching from a tunnel. Against every instinct, I turned toward the sound. What appeared lasted only seconds, but the image burned itself permanently into my memory. Articulated legs emerged first, moving with paradoxical grace, both swift and deliberate. The rest of the creature followed. A brilliant silver-blue arachnid covered in coarse black bristles, roughly the size of a large dog. As it reached the center of the opening, its limbs began to contort and fuse, transforming into human-like appendages with a series of sickening cracks. Its posture shifted as its body bent upward, forming a crude human spine. It scuttled away on its new limbs, disappearing from view, leaving me paralyzed with terror. I don't know how long I stood frozen before a terrible realization hit me. The hatch! It was heading for the exit. I bolted through the tunnels, struggling to remember my path. I passed the cradle, now shattered on the floor, evidence of the creature's passage and its rage. I spotted a beam of daylight ahead and sprinted toward it. I wasn't too late. I could escape and trap this monstrosity underground. But as I approached, I watched in horror as the hatch slowly descended. offering one final glimpse of sunlight before sealing shut with finality. Disbelief overwhelmed me. This couldn't be happening. Such nightmares weren't supposed to exist in reality. I climbed the ladder and pushed against the unyielding metal until my hands bled. I clawed at the edges until my nails split. I screamed uselessly into the void, hearing only my echo in response. Eventually, I surrendered to my fate and explored what had become my prison. Searching for anything to restore hope, I found what appeared to be a kitchen area containing only an almost empty water container. Given the humidity, I knew dehydration would claim me within days. I returned to the bedroom, hoping to spend my remaining time in something resembling comfort. There, I noticed what panic had previously hidden from me: a computer monitor with a webcam across from the bed. On the screen was my bedroom at home. The creature had been watching me all along through my computer's camera. It had taken the woman's form to lure me here, and I had fallen for its trap completely, abandoning logic in my rush to be a hero. A shadow moved across my bedroom on the screen, momentarily giving me hope, but what entered the frame destroyed any remaining illusion of salvation. The creature now stood in human form, its skin pale as moonlight, wearing clothes from my closet and sporting hair identical to mine. Only its face retained arachnid features, slender mouth parts and multiple obsidian eyes. But even as I watched, its face began to transform. White tissue flowed like wax, forming features: a nose with slightly asymmetrical nostrils, eye sockets from which emerged amber eyes like my own, a mouth with teeth that resembled mine but ended in subtle points. I stared at my doppelganger, speechless with terror. The entity gazed back, a grotesque smile spreading across its too perfect imitation of my face. From downstairs, I heard my father's voice call out, "Alex, dinner's ready." The creature's smile widened, revealing those slightly too sharp teeth. "Perfect timing," it replied in my exact voice. Then it closed the laptop, leaving me alone in darkness, awaiting the end that approaches with each passing moment.